else will you do? I look at my dashboard, my profits erased, my margins are gone, it's a slap in the face. Prime days a promise, but it's such a race. How much will I make if I'm replaced? It's a cruel, cruel number. Fees keep climbing, profits torn asunder. Oh, it's cruel. The sellers wonder how to survive when the margins go under. It's a cruel, cruel number. Every month it's something new to plunder. Oh, it's cruel. It's no wonder we're stuck in this game. The algorithm's thunder.
Yo, Amazon's back, and they got a new scheme. Reimbursement slashed, it's every seller's dream. They're digging deep, taking more from the pot. Let's break it all down, expose what they got. March 25, it's a policy drop. They say manufacturing costs, but we know it's a flop. Give us your cogs, they're demanding the price. But if you don't, they'll estimate nice. Nice for them, not for you. Watch a payout shrink. That comprehensive evil is a corporate wing. Lost in the warehouse, damaged on the floor. Now they pay you pennies, not a cent more. Fees on the rise, profits on the run. They don't lift a finger, but they pocket the fun. We're fair! They shout while they cut our shares. Amazon math, man, it's full of errors. Fees, taking our dough. They're stacking the deck, and it's sellers who owe. Reimbursement? Nah, they're taking us down, but we're still here, we don't mess around. Fees, straight to the top. Amazon's game, it'll never stop. Margins tight, but we keep the grind. Sellers unite, we're one of a kind.
I try to sell my product on Amazon for it be a breeze. But little did I know I'd be stuck with seller support disease. They never seem to solve my problems, just give me the runaround. I'm tired of waiting on hold. My patience is wearing thin, I'll never be found. Amazon seller support, you suck, you suck, you suck. Can't get no satisfaction. I'm out of luck, out of luck, out of luck. You don't care about my business, just trying to make a buck. Amazon seller support, you suck, you suck, you suck.
This one's for the sellers on the grind, getting left on red, wasting all their time. I hit up support, got an auto reply. Thanks for your patience, man, I wanna cry. Inventory lost, my margins are toast. Reps playing tag like the Casper the Ghost. They pass me around, it's a never-ending game. Nobody takes action, everybody shifts blame. My ASIN's down, I'm out of the race. They say they'll escalate, yo, what a disgrace. Amazon seller support, you're breaking my heart. No answers, no fixes, just tearing me apart. Hours in the queue, stuck in the dark. Amazon seller support, you're missing the mark.
Amazon game plan, that is the key. Seller central dashboard, that's where I be. Analyze the funnel, see what we lack, then we optimize. Sellers know it's a fact. I get it popping, you know that it's lit. Climbing the rankings, ain't no room to quit. I check the data, they notice the stats. I keep the method, that's how you adapt. Metrics are showing, you know it's our cap. Amazon sellers, it's time to react. I'm about that action, I do this with passion. I got them like, whoa, what is this? Huh, whoa.
I don't know, dude. I think everybody's just buying stuff based on reviews and badges or whatever. They don't even know who we are. These customers don't even know the name of my brand. But they keep clicking add to cart like it's part of the plan. They see that Amazon badge and think it's all grand. But yo, they don't even know the name of my brand.
Click, scroll, build your store. Amazon's waiting, what you waiting for? Brand it loud, make it shine. Steven's here to drop the rhyme. Tiles, banners, plug and play. Your storefront's live, let's sell a day. Now listen up, I'm Steven Pope. Amazon guru, I'll help you cope. Step 1, get that trademark stamped. Without brand registry, your Amazon cramped. Head to Seller Central, log in quick. Manage stores tab, yeah, that's the trick. Upload your logo, flex that style. You're about to make Jeff Bezos smile. Where pick a template, marquee or grid. Drop your tiles like a branding whiz. Hero image, big and bold. This store's gonna glitter like digital gold. Scroll, build your store. Amazon's waiting, what you waiting for? Brand it loud, make it shine. Steven's here to drop the rhyme. Blue tiles, banners, plug and play. Your storefront's live, let's sell today. Yo. In the trenches of the Amazon game, trying to survive while it's driving me insane. Nobody warns you, they just claim it's passive income. Nah, it's pain. I'm sitting at a birthday, laughing, chilling, next to a newbie Amazon seller spilling. She's like, Prime so smooth, it's a killer. Then tried to sell, now she's stuck in a thriller. Finding products, yeah, that's the first grind. Scrolling Alibaba, losing my mind. Sample suck, manufacturers decline. I'm like, dang, how's anyone doing this fine? Ship it in, pay for the bubble wrap, but they ship glass bottles in padded crap. Now I got hot sauce leaks, refund stack, customers pissed. Man, I'm under attack. Amazon's a beast, it's a fight, no peace. From SEO to PPC, the hustle don't cease. Think it's passive? Nah, you better increase your tolerance for chaos or face defeat. Trademark wars, brand registries a scam. They banned my brand, now I'm in a jam. Listings yanked, products ranked and tanked. Lost dogs in the catalog, my account shanked. Now let's talk ads, it's a rabbit hole. 1,000 hours deep, man, it's taking my soul. Weekly negations, bulk sheets for control. Excel's my new weapon, but it's taking its toll. SEO's no joke, keywords in the game. All text, A+ content, playing insane. Lifestyle shots, avatars for fame, but the CTR's low, all products look the same. Amazon's a beast, it's a fight, no peace. From SEO to PPC, from SEO to PPC, the hustle don't cease. Think it's passive? Nah, you better increase your tolerance for chaos or face defeat. Let's go to Max School. To Max School. Class is now in session with Professor Pope. They got the S&P cause Professor Pope wrote the recipe, helping Amazon sellers grow sales exponentially. Amazon's a jungle, but we map the strategy. Brand strategist playbook, it's a guide to victory. Troubleshooting catalogs, you know we got the answer key. Boosting all your rankings, turning sales into a legacy. SOB so deep, you think we studied at Max School. Every step we follow leads to growth, yeah, it's a golden rule. Stuck on keywords, we'll find the ones that work the best. Using helium-10, strike distance keywords pass the test. Incremental indexing ensures the listing set to rise. From the back end to the bullets, optimization hits the skies. Brand store creation, yeah, we make it shine and flow. A+ content design makes conversions overflow. Need your images on point, best practices in the plan. All text and photo rules ensure your visuals command. SEO meets PPC, it's balanced, every step aligned. We'll construct the MKLs that drive rankings over time. Budget caps and bid adjustments, no more wasted spending. Segmentation builds campaigns that sellers can defend. Got a hijacker, no problem, we'll file to take them down. Review requests in action, 5-star ratings come around. Flat file updates, market share reports, it's all in reach. Professor Pope wrote the SOP so sellers learn and teach.
Meanwhile, my Amazon guys on the case, fixing up my problems at lightning pace. Ticket escalations, Mag's the boss. Even Amazon says we'll take the loss. Seller support don't know what's up. Passing the buck when the issue gets tough. They're the official team, but they can't comply. So they say, reach out to my Amazon guy. They're supposed to be the pros, but they can't decode policies and tools from their own damn road. I'm paying fees, yet they bring me stress. But Mag turns my chaos into pure success. Seller support reps, they throwing shade, but then admit, yo, Mag will get you paid. Third-party agency taking the throne while Amazon fumbles in their own damn zone. Seller support don't know what's up. Passing the buck when the issue gets tough. They're the official team, but they can't comply. So they say, reach out to my Amazon guy. So here's the truth. Let's keep it real. Mag's the team with the pro-level skill. Amazon sellers, you know the vibe when support says call Mag. They'll give you peace of mind. Amazon seller support, you can suck my image stack. Sucking is all you're good at anyway. Bezos, hit me up if you want to sell seller support. I'm buying. There's a chase. Peace.
All right. Have tariffs got you down? Are you looking for different solutions to potentially save on some crazy, crazy fees that could be coming your way if you're importing goods from China? Are you looking for other ways, even if the tariffs go away? Are there other ways that you could source products? So we're going to talk about all that in this session. I am super excited to bring on Jim Kennemer from Cosmo Sourcing. So Jim, thank you for joining us here on this AMA today.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Before we hit the button, it turns out you and I actually kind of know of the same small town in Wisconsin.
Yeah, Monroe, Wisconsin, which is where I'm based. I put Madison on everything, but yeah, I'm technically in Monroe, Wisconsin, tiny little town just south of Madison.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And I tell people all the time in the West Palm Beach area, but I'm technically in a town called Palm City, which most people don't know of. But every now and then I get somebody that knows it. So, all right. So we're going to be answering your questions about sourcing in Vietnam. The interesting thing here is Jim and I had never actually spoken until I saw him on the speaker lineup at Seller Summit coming up. So shout out to Steve Chu, my wife quit her job, and Tony Erbach, who put on the awesome event in Fort Lauderdale, which is that's next week, right?
Yes, next week. I will be on a flight down there at this time next week. So yeah, looking forward to it. I'll be a keynote speaker there. I have been working, get the presentation finished. I feel like went through 3 different iterations based on changes in tariff landscape since I started it.
Yeah, you probably
just a few weeks ago.
Ever evolving topic.
I know. I was like, oh, yeah, I just kind of had a whole rundown of the tariffs, what they were, and then boom, changed. Did that again, and boom, changed again. So
boom, keeps changing. All right. So with all these tariffs, folks, for those of you watching, if you don't mind, drop an emoji and just let me know, what are your thoughts on where the tariffs are hitting you? So maybe it's a good thing because you're having less competition because you're already sourcing from the US. Maybe it's a bad thing because you're sourcing from China. Drop us just a quick emoji in the comments. Creativity could be rewarded. And I also believe in participation trophies. So I come from a generation that makes fun of participation trophies, but here we actually reward participation. So we could be giving away prizes from time to time. So all those are coming in. We had a few other comments. Insiders Agency just became a YouTube member. Thank you for that. We're excited to have you joining us. Hopefully you're live. Looks like that comment was from earlier today. Michael says, this is quite timely and relevant. Looking forward to learning. Well, we're excited that you're here, Michael. Unlimited Advertising says, hi, Kevin. It's nice to see you again. This is a very interesting topic. So unlimited advertising, I wish I knew who you were, but I'm excited that you're here either way. So thank you for joining. Then we've got Daniel Alem. Didn't put in an emoji, although maybe that was an emoji and it just got transposed to just a question.
Got questions about China and
yes, lots of questions. Don't we all? This is the one thing about when I ask for emojis, I got to put on my glasses because some of them are kind of hard to see. Unlimited emojis, or limited advertising. It's kind of an angry face. Chantal, I guess kind of like gulp, so to speak.
Yeah.
Then we've got Deepak Saluja, 3 trophies and crying.
Might be already sourcing outside of China. So
yes, they must be sourcing outside of China and feel like they set themselves up for success. But who knows? This is like a Big Brother. Expect the unexpected.
For sure.
Daniel gave a crying face emoji. So to everyone who just participated in my emoji thing, email podcast@myamazonguy.com and we will get you a free mag school course valued at $100 just for participating. And who knows, I might give away other stuff later just because I might, and maybe I get in trouble for it. I don't know, but I'm going to anyway. So I probably won't get in trouble, but anyway, Mudassar Aziz says, just joined. Hi to you both, as does Abdul, says hi. Deepak says China money, US. Is that a hospital?
Yeah,
that's definitely creative. And
we do pay a
Chantal
lot for
says,
healthcare here. So
right, we're paying off healthcare here. Yes. Chantal says craziness. So yes, craziness is the name of the game. So I heard a quote the other day that really resonated with me, and I think it was Carl Jung had said that. Oh my gosh, I'm about to butcher it. I was so excited to say it. Oh, yes. That clarity is confidence. So you can have more confidence the clearer you are about the situation you're in.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
always understand there's always, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Jim Kennemer. I'm the founder and managing director of Cosmos Sourcing. I started Cosmos Sourcing in 2012, actually in China originally.
Okay.
Started sourcing from China for a few years, but yeah, I visited Vietnam when I was living in China, fell in love with the country, loved it. And yeah, in 2014, I decided to move to Vietnam and start sourcing from Vietnam. Everybody, there's at that time, tons of people sourced from China, but no one really was sourcing from Vietnam. So this is what's going to make the big key differentiator. So yeah, I moved there in 2014, lived there for a year and a half, and yeah, started sourcing products from there, started building up my team and whatnot. At the time, Vietnam was pretty, less developed than it is today. Definitely a little bit more wild west in terms of sourcing. But yeah, still great. Still had a lot of success. And yeah, the first round of trade war happened, had a huge uptick in demand for Vietnam, and really kind of that's when I really kind of feel like the first wave happened, and when I really kind of built the current team up. And then yeah, so I've been sourcing from Vietnam for a little over 10 years, and then since last summer, we've actually been expanding throughout Southeast Asia and Mexico. So we're starting to do what we call anywhere but China sourcing. That's kind of going to be our key thing. But at the core, Vietnam is definitely the number one country we source from. Even since the expansion, 70% of our clients still prefer and request Vietnam specifically. So yeah, and I do think it's the best alternative for China.
Yeah, it seems like it would be. And if anything, it's near China.
Yeah.
From my understanding, there's a lot of investment from China that went into factories in Vietnam anyway.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, especially since the first round of tariffs. Big, huge investment in factories from China to Vietnam. Vietnam is different in China in that they do allow direct foreign ownership of factories, foreign direct investments. So, but even from our estimations, because we do kind of keep track of it, about 25% of factories in Vietnam are Chinese owned, but still about 50% are Vietnamese owned. And the rest are made up a lot. I would say actually Korea, Taiwan have a significant amount of factories there, Japanese owned factories. Even some European countries, like we work with a Danish owned factory, for instance, for quite a good, for actually two different ones, one that has furniture, one that has workwear. So yeah, and outerwear. So yeah, I mean, it's a little different. Like in China, every factory is Chinese, but yeah,
Right.
But still, the majority of factories are Vietnamese owned, from our experience, and we overall deal with Vietnamese owned factories, but it does definitely a little different landscape in that way.
Okay, awesome. So we'll get into some the questions that I had to kind of prime the pump here, so to speak. So folks, if you have questions for Jim, go ahead and add them into the chat. So Jim, what would be the reason someone would want to source in Vietnam? You know, like what would be the situations, I should say? And
I would say, I mean, obviously tariffs are a big consideration. At the moment, there's 10% from Vietnam, 145% from China on most goods.
Difference.
Yeah, huge difference, and knock on wood, that stays in effect. It is on 98 pause. 46% was what announced during a reciprocal tariff, but they are in negotiations. It is going well. That's me knocking on wood.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are negotiations directly between the White House and the Vietnamese government, and by all accounts, they're going good. And I do expect a trade deal to be announced sooner than later. But yeah, I mean, Vietnam, I personally think they're fairly easy to work with. I think they're more direct than Chinese, but in China there's a lot of yes men who say they can do something but can't. Vietnamese for the most part are pretty blunt. They'll let you know if they can't do something, and there's not really that culture of corner cutting like there is in China. So I mean, what you pay for is what you get, which is, I mean that in a good way. So yeah, and I think the quality is quite good, especially for what they make. You do have to be very focused on what products you can and can't source from Vietnam, but one of the big categories, textiles, anything cotton sew, that ranges from anything from t-shirts to dress shirts, dresses, high-end clothing, outerwear, to bags and luggage, purses, etc. So anything really textile based is by far the number one category, and something I think even without tariffs, Vietnam does better than China. And then a lot of wooden goods too. Vietnam excels in. So we do a lot of wooden furniture and wooden home goods as well. But even beyond that, we were starting to do a lot more advanced stuff like plastic injection molding, some EMS, which is electronic manufacturing services. That's really a newer one that's really growing fast in Vietnam. Used to, we did not do electronics at all. I'm talking like literally just a few years ago, but a lot of more investment in that area, which is great. But still limited on what you can't do. You can't build an iPad there yet.
Sure.
But yeah, you can do small electronic items. But yeah, a lot of plastic injection moldings and whatnot. Some goes.
What are some products that wouldn't do well sourcing from Vietnam?
Yeah, I mean, I would say a lot of complex parts. Like we don't really do much private label goods at all. The Vietnamese factories are almost entirely contract manufacturers, so they expect the clients to provide a spec sheet or a detailed sample, and they'll make it to your specs. But there's not really that much private label goods, and there's a lot of kind of more complex but basic goods that I would say. There still are a lot of electronic items. Like I still kind of prefer sourcing most electronics from China than Vietnam, even with that increase. But yeah, there's still a bit. It's definitely developing, but it's definitely developing, not developed part of manufacturing in a lot of ways.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get to some questions that folks have asked. So Unlimited Advertising says, what's the best way to verify product quality and factory legitimacy when sourcing from Vietnam instead of China? And I'm sure this is probably coming because, like, you know, you can always find Alibaba.com.
Oh yeah, for sure.
For China, but it's harder with Vietnam.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, there's not really, like you said, Alibaba. And to be honest, the Vietnamese kind of distrust Chinese-based services, including Alibaba.
Oh, that's good. No.
Yeah, they don't really have that. I mean, you really do have to do your research in Vietnam and really kind of be aggressive, follow up, and contact directly by phone and email. But yeah, in terms of verified product quality, I mean, always arrange samples to be made for production. You can work with a third-party inspection service to actually go visit the factory. And same thing with legitimacy. I mean, they can provide business records and whatnot, so you can actually check to make sure they have the manufacturer and that they're connected to it. You know, when you have bank accounts, make sure the bank account name matches the factory name, for instance. But yeah, I mean, I would definitely work with a third-party inspection service to do a pre-production inspection, so that before even any money changes hands, that you have that record. And that's probably the best way. And that's assuming you already found a factory or some factories.
Where would you go to look?
For
like Google?
Yeah, I mean, Google is not banned in Vietnam, so you can use Google. Yellow Pages.
Oh, okay, that's good to know.
Trade shows. I think trade shows personally are one of the best ways if you're willing to travel. Definitely meet factories face to face. There's, unfortunately, it's just last weekend, but Global Source is probably the best general trade show for all factories. Okay. And then there'll be industry specific one like Hawa and Bifa for furniture, and there's a couple of textile clothing based ones every year. There's shoe centric trade shows. So if you have a specific product category in mind, definitely look at trade shows that specifically tailor to that, and you know, obviously get resources. And I mean, we have like several different resources, but like we use Import Yeti and whatnot to look up suppliers too a lot of times. But at this point, we personally maintain our own internal database, so we have over 20,000 factories in our database of suppliers just in Vietnam, and we're expanding that globally now too. But yeah, it's definitely kind of have to do a lot more research, a lot more groundwork instead of just posting RFQ on Alibaba and having them come to you. So you do have to be the one actively pursuing the factories and following up, which is a little different and does.
Got it. So
people are kind of surprised about.
So it's not as much of like China where, like, you know, you message them once and they're following you for years.
Oh yeah, no, not at all. You got to really be the one actually following them up and actually pursuing them.
Got it. Which in some ways is good because they must believe in themselves and their product enough. Yeah, that hungry.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, cool. Daniel Alam says, what do you guys think how long tariffs will be in effect, especially on China? I'm sure you probably get this question. So, like, you know, you find another country, whether it's Vietnam or Mexico or whatever, and then all of a sudden China goes back to normal, and then maybe Mexico has the tariffs.
Oh, I know. I really, it's so hard to say with what he's going to do one day from the next. I mean, I think it's going to be in effect for the short term. How long the short term is hard to say, but China's made no effort to get in contact or negotiate, and they really seem quite adverse, or they really don't seem to care or pursue that. So I think it might be in effect for a while, especially for China. As regard to other tariffs, like I might have mentioned earlier, there's a 90-day pause. Like when the reciprocal tariffs were first announced on April 2nd, it was 46% from Vietnam. And then it was paused for 90 days, which we're in, started April 10th. So it's down to 10% at the moment from Vietnam. And like I said, hopefully that one, before that pause is over, will go down considerably. Maybe 0, maybe 10%. I couldn't tell you, but I do think the tariffs will be in effect for definitely from the short term, which probably is through at least the summer, I'd imagine. But it's really hard to say. I don't know if there's even a central plan. I don't even know if Trump knows that answer to that question.
I don't know. I mean, like here's the way I look at it. Like, this is not to get into politics, but like
I know, you kind of have
Tony
to for
Robbins
this, unfortunately.
would say, yeah, it's don't think about the situation of how you wish it would be. Think about how it actually is. Yeah. So if you're ever unclear of like what's happening around the world, especially today, read the book The Art of the Deal from it's like from 1989 or something that Donald Trump wrote, and it kind of explains his thought process, and you can see it in like a lot of the decisions he's made in both this term and the last term. And I think some of this is bargaining chips. Now the thing that stinks for those of us who are manufacturing from China,
basically the pawns.
Right, we're kind of the pawns in the middle of this. So we'll have to see where this goes. So, but right now, even if let's say it ends up with like 10% tariffs both in Vietnam and 10% tariffs in China, it's still worth looking into other solutions. So sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was going to say just beyond that. I mean, there's within the last 5 years, there's 2 big shocks: this tariff trade war, and then, or even 3 if you want to count the first round of tariffs, and then COVID, obviously. So, I mean, just from a personal point of view, obviously, I think having backup options, and even if you just look for suppliers, not necessarily get quotes at this time, or even get quotes but not pursue a purchase order at this time, it's definitely good to have a robust supply chain. Because, I mean, 2 or 3 shocks in a 6-7 year period is a lot. So I mean, you can definitely have backup suppliers. So I think even just looking and having alternatives elsewhere is definitely going to be a huge advantage to anybody's supply chain.
Yeah, definitely. All right,
e-commerce business.
Definitely. All right. So for those of you watching, make sure to get your questions in now. We've still got more coming, but they tend to come towards the end of the session. So if you want your question answered, best time to get it in is now. So, all right. So next up, I am going to Abdul asks, should we source from China? Now, I'm going to rephrase this question. What made you decide, if you were, at one point, all in with China? You even said you lived in China?
Yeah, I lived in China for 2 years, from 2012 to 2014.
Okay. What made you decide to transition to focusing more on Vietnam than China sourcing?
A couple different things. I mean, at the time, I just really liked the vibe of Vietnam. I just, I just kind of like living in Vietnam. So I kind of decided to move there, and I'd rather live there. But the main reason, I mean, just from a business point of view, is like at that time, there were literally hundreds of people sourcing from China that were sourcing companies and sourcing agents and whatnot. So just being a new guy in the industry, there was nothing really differentiating me from anybody else versus people who had 10 years experience, And I had mentors, and I had like people that I worked with. So I had a pretty good network in China. But at the time, no one was really sourcing from Vietnam. And, I was just looking at factories, and I knew it was definitely the next Asian country to grow, because you see like Japan, Korea, Taiwan, where they were like 30, 40 years ago versus where they are now. There's like this Asian growth model. And I really thought, and I still believe it to this day, 11, 12 years later, that Vietnam is the next big Asian tiger that is going to follow that model. And they're definitely on that progress. It's just a 20, 30 year plan. But so I just really saw the potential there, and no one was sourcing from Vietnam. There was a lot of opportunities there. As soon as I moved there, just cold called a couple of my contacts and said, "Hey, I'm in Vietnam. What do you need?" And I literally had people pretty much, "Oh, wow, that's amazing. Great. There's this project or that project that I sourced." And I was mostly doing, the big one that really started me out at that time was industrial wooden goods. So I mean, you look at like pallets. Like one of my first big projects was, have you seen like wire? You know, it's on those big wooden spools.
Mm-hmm.
I was sourcing those wooden spools, so I had got a pretty good contract right off the bat for those. And then I was doing like shovels and wooden handles, but even then I was starting to expand more in textiles and textiles, and then started kind of working up the chain, do a lot more furniture and home goods. And I mean, the furniture industries in Vietnam is growing to the point that's probably among the best in the world, if not the best in the world. Just in terms of what they can do, quality. They can do everything from high-end, Four Seasons, solid wood furniture. Like we work with an Australian client who does, I'm not going to name the price or who they are, but these go for thousands of dollars for a single piece, like a dining room table. It's extremely nice wood. And then we work with like people who do flat pack furniture at low cost and everything in between. So yeah, I mean, yeah. To kind
Awesome.
of tangent from should we source from China?
No, it's good. So okay, so
Yeah.
so basically wooden things that are wooden,
Mhm.
i.e. furniture, but like you use
Yeah.
the example of shovel handles, wire spools, things like
Yeah.
that. Some electronics. So it doesn't basically have everything that
No.
China has, but there's a lot of different options. So,
Yeah. And with wooden goods, it's a tropical country, so they have tropical wood plantations. So it's ethically sourced, sustainably harvested wood, and have access to a huge amount of it. And with Asian too, they got access to whole, it's effectively kind of EU like, in terms of free trade. So I mean, the quality wood for the price you get is probably among the top in the world. So you get a lot of good tropical woods there. But yeah, the question is, should we source from China? Honestly, it's still worth sourcing from China if you're selling outside the United States. If you're a European Union seller or Canada seller or whatnot, yeah,
that's a good point.
yeah. But I
Because
assume everybody here is mostly American since we are.
right, we have mostly folks that are
Yeah.
either in America or selling in America. But that
Mhm.
is a good point that if you
Yeah.
have a presence in countries
Mhm.
outside of the United States,
Yeah.
just make sure you're sending things directly to those countries
Oh, 100%.
to save on
You can
those
technically
tariffs.
send it as a pass through, but as long as it doesn't go through customs, but it's complicated and not worth dealing with the paperwork and logistics.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so next up, Deepak says, Jim, do you think India has any hope of catching up with Vietnam, let alone China, for sourcing in the near future?
Yeah, I think so. I think India definitely has a lot of potential. Yeah, I mean, they already do quite a bit, like especially in textiles and like we're talking wooden goods and a few other things. And I mean, I think I read that Apple is going to make all their iPhones for the US market this year or maybe even next year in India because of tariffs. Yeah. So yeah, definitely I think it does. And I know, JD Vance was in India last week, and I think they were finalizing the deals of their trade agreement, which India might actually beat Vietnam, quite frankly, in terms of trade deals announced. So yeah, I think that they definitely do. It's a huge country. So I mean, it's a huge country. So I definitely I think it's going to be growing pretty quickly.
Well, I think even if my personal opinion is, even if the tariffs for China go down to 0 or 10%, and it's relatively the same as everyone else, I still think this has been enough of a shock. Along with, like you mentioned, the C word from 2020 and the previous round of tariffs, that all that has enough shocks that people are like, it's probably worth looking into other places. So it creates demand, but then also some of these other countries are probably going to raise their hand and say, we're really good at furniture, we're really good at wood, or something else. So we'll see a lot of emerging countries, ones that we probably hadn't even thought of, are probably going to
but look at a lot of like Central America too as possible expansion, because they do a lot of textiles there. Like Nike and a few other big brands have large mills down there. So I think that has a lot of, like, specifically Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador has a lot of potential. I know Brazil. I was talking, or just very briefly chatting with somebody who's doing source from Brazil. So yeah, I think there's definitely going to be a couple of countries that kind of come out that kind of surprise people with manufacturing. But yeah, I think manufacturing, the supply chain is going to be global, because it really was concentrated in China for the last 10, 15 years or so.
Yeah, it definitely has been. All right. So then next up, Mudasar asks, a great point about sourcing. I've worked with brands that import from China and others shifting to local or near shore suppliers due to lead times and rising costs. Curious to hear your take. Do you think diversification is more important now than ever?
Mhm.
Even last week, I have 2 sellers who are moving to UK store now.
Yeah, I think, yeah, like I said, I definitely think it's going to be definitely a huge asset to business. Like I said, even having like a primary supplier and just having like backup and having contacts and quotes and making sure you have that relationship or backup just so you can move quickly is definitely going to be the way forward. Because I mean, we talked to people who were 100% on in China, had no backup plan just in the last month. Several people, big brands. I'm talking like brands that do
Most of us.
oh, I know. I'm talking brands that do like 10-figure sales and they just did not have a backup plan.
Hmm.
Which really shocked me, and they're scrambling. I mean, to find suppliers, and I wish I could help everyone, but yeah, some of them just it's to find a new supplier, you gotta get quotes, talk to them, get quotes, verify and
Right.
vet them, then order samples, and it's a month-long process. So starting now, you're still going to have maybe 1-2 shipments with 145% tariffs in, which you're going to have to weather that, and then move suppliers, get everything onboarded with them. So yeah, I mean, but we've also worked suppliers that we've talked with 1-2 years ago that we did a sourcing report. They didn't follow up or place a purchase order in Vietnam, but then they recontact us in the last 2 weeks, and they're months ahead of everybody else because they already talked to the suppliers, already have a little bit of relationship, so they're able to move quicker than most. And then we obviously have people who've been sourcing from Vietnam for a while, either as a primary or secondary source, and those were just instant, very quickly.
Yeah, you brought up an interesting point there about a lot of these companies. We could be talking about big brands, not just
Yeah.
sellers on Amazon, even if they have a 7 or 8 figure brand.
Yeah.
But a lot of these really really big companies that they're going to have to figure this out because they're so China dependent.
Mhm.
I think right now, no one's like the only people that are feeling the shockwaves of this are people in the seller community
Yeah,
who are importing things
I know.
and
It
don't
hasn't hit the
have
shelves yet,
huge
is the
budget.
crazy things.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be interesting when the consumers either can't
Mhm.
find the goods they're looking for, or all of a sudden the prices are way higher. That I think we'll
Yeah.
start seeing more pressure on this changing because right now
Mhm.
most of the pressure seems to be from like
Yeah,
us.
because yeah, I know, we're the front line, so, we see that immediately. But, yeah, those shipments, I mean, takes up to 30 days for a ship to go from China to West Coast. So those ships are on the water, not even onboarded yet, that are going to hit the first wave, 140% tariffs, and then by the time those reach shelves, we're looking at late May, early June, and that's really when the consumers are going to see tariffs goods and the increase in
Oh yeah.
prices, or the orders that were canceled not be on the shelves. So, yeah, this is going to be a months long
Oh yeah. Like
issue.
today,
Yeah.
literally today,
Yeah,
I had
if they
FedEx.
were literally release it today, all the canceled orders or delayed orders or paused orders is going to be, in June, there's going to be this big wave of or lack of orders that are unfulfilled. And yeah, so we'll see empty shelves in June, no matter what, even if everything would go to zero today.
Oh yeah, because
Yeah.
there's going to be
Mhm.
it's going to take time. So like for example, this morning, I just got a
Yeah.
shipment arrived from FedEx with a bunch of cases that I had ordered from China.
Yeah.
Now that shipped in mid-March, so
Mhm.
no one knew all this is going to
Yeah.
happen. Maybe
Yeah.
there was hints, but we didn't know it was going to happen the way it was going to happen. So,
Oh,
all
I
right,
know.
let's get to some more questions. Thomas says, "Hello, thank you guys for your time. Do you guys think Trump is going to implement tariffs on Vietnam after 90 days are finished? If yes, what solutions should you offer?" This is a multi-part question.
Yeah.
I own a baby chair brand, which sounds like that might work. And I
We've actually
source from
done
China,
high
but
chairs
no,
before.
trying to get to some suppliers on Vietnam, but it's kind of hard. What tips can you
Yeah.
give me, and how do I make payments to them? Always pay through Alibaba.com. Currently using trade assurance, but Vietnam companies are not on Alibaba.
Yeah, there's not really a good Alibaba trade assurance option. I mean, some people do letters of credit if you want to set that up, so it kind of acts like escrow service. But yeah, I really think, I mean, one big things we do is really kind of tie in when we do a contracts is tie in the payments with successful inspections.
Hmm.
So the first payment, like we talked about earlier, a pre-production inspection where they go and check the factory, check the machinery, check similar items they made, check the business license, um, all that stuff. Then you make the 30% down payment to start production. And then the second purchase order, you do a post-production pre-shipment inspection. So the product's still at the factory. And then you have it in the contract that it has passed the inspection for them pay, and then they'll take like some random samples of the product off. But yeah, and off-site do inspections. So like in order of shipment, they'll inspect 5 of them. If all 5 look great, you can assume that the rest look good. And then utilize the 70 payment, and then negotiate 30-60 net. But it's hard to do that with the first time order.
Sure. Are they generally open to those type of?
Yeah, they're open 30-60 nets, but
Hmm.
it's but a lot of
Good to
times
know.
not with a first time order.
Sure.
Yeah, so you're going to have to really be involved. And we can help with this. It's something we do a lot of times for clients. But you do have to be more involved with the process. Like you mentioned, there is not an equivalent of Alibaba Trade Assurance in Vietnam. So you do more or less directly wire money straight to a Vietnamese account, which obviously you got to do your own verification with working with third party, make sure everything's legit, and make sure like when they send the sourcing reports or the inspection reports that you double check everything. You see the photos, you see everything, and everything looks up to snuff. So yeah, it's going to be more involved, to be quite honest. Let's start with the beginning. This was like a 3-part question. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was basically, do you think the Trump the tariffs, if Trump's going to put the tariffs on Vietnam after the 90-day pause?
I'm pretty confident, and the general vibe of everybody I talk to, from factory owners to my team members, and even our clients who are buyers, is that a trade deal is going to be reached with Vietnam and United States. I was just talking to somebody, and the vibe that Trump wants to get is have a couple of big grand trade deals of, hey, we got India, we got Vietnam, we got Israel, and there's like big nice White House Rose Garden thing where they announce it,
Right.
make a big example of like, hey, we're friendly to these guys because these guys didn't reciprocate. They want to make a deal. So knock on wood, that's what's happening, and it seems to be happening. But yeah, like I said, it was 46% when it was first announced. I seriously doubt it's going to be that high, and that's the absolute maximum it's ever going to be. So if there is a trade deal, I think it would be 20% or less from Vietnam at most, personally. But don't hold me to that. Don't know what's going.
No,
Yeah.
Here's a follow-up question to what he asked. What, for comparable goods, in your experience, what is the pricing relative to China?
It depends on the products a lot of time. Like when we do clothing and the textiles, it's pretty much 1-for-1. Shoes, we can especially the large bulk order shoes, we can get sometimes for cheaper. Same wooden goods, we can often get for cheaper, like maybe 5-10% cheaper than China, because China imports a lot of their wood. Yeah. And I think the wood quality is better in Vietnam too. But then other goods, like we do a lot of like silicone, injection molding, silicone and plastic injection molding. I find that tends to be a little bit more expensive. And a lot of times the molds, like we get molds, they still come from China. For those, we'll do some more complex furniture items, like working with one person who does like kind of knockdown furniture. He was getting fairly cheap in Vietnam, and that it'd be more expensive. We did rubber boots, and that was more expensive than Vietnam did China. Specifically rubber boots, not shoes in general. I'm actually looking at our previous projects. Yeah, silk scarves, which are kind of a mixed material. That's going to be kind of comparable, I think, but might be a little bit more. So it really kind of depends on the product. Some auto parts that we've been doing are probably going to be a little bit more expensive, but obviously cheaper with tariffs. So we're doing a couple auto part projects right now. Yeah, but it really depends on the product. Metal goods tend to be a little bit more expensive, but we still do a lot of metal goods. We're doing like industrial shelving, for instance, for a client. And we'll see if he places a purchase order, because he's definitely weighing his option, and he's actually Canadian based, but sells in the United States a lot. So
Gotcha.
We'll see if he ends up making the purchase order there. Yeah.
All right. So another question came in. Are you sure we source from Vietnamese, the quality will be better? So really, to rephrase this, what is, just as I mentioned, the price, relative to China? What about the quality?
I mean, there are definitely cheaper factories, and there's obviously good quality factories, like that are pretty modern, that have high quality. So it really depends on the factory. And like we said, you really kind of got to follow up. Because, I mean, it really depends on the product. Like a lot of times, like we've had people with pretty basic product spec sheets, and they make it a spec, but we've had people who detail every single fabric, every single stitch, and they'll make it exact. So, I mean, just with scrubs, like we have a client who's specifying like down to stitching, exactly how the stitching should be done and every single part of that. And I mean, he's getting exactly what he's asking for, so the quality's good, but it is going to be more involved, I suppose. And a lot of times too, like we said, is contract manufacturing versus private label. Private label is like if you're ordering like a thermos, I don't know. They're mass produced, they are what they are, but you're going to do contract manufacturing for that thermos in Vietnam, and you kind of really got to make sure that you're the one who's following up with the tolerances and quality in that regard. So it's a mix, to be honest. I don't say it's 100% always better than Vietnam, but a lot of times we do get quality products from Vietnam, and there are definitely very repeatable factories. Like we consistently get backpacks. I think the factories we work with and make backpacks and bags and luggage, duffel bags and stuff, I think consistently do better quality than China. But that's because we done our verification vetting of these factories. We have several great factories that we know consistently do great products, have really good quality control built in, where like any one worker knows the issue, they can literally press a button and stop the whole supply chain type deal, and have and then they have like various means like imaging systems that actually can test like sizes and tolerances. So there's that. But yeah, I mean, the quality factories, they're good quality factories to make high-end products.
So these are modern factories with modern equipment. So that's good to know. All right. And then the follow-up question here is, could you explain how we find the exact manufacturer in Vietnam? So like
the resources we use or what?
Yeah, like how would one find, since
I mean,
there's no
for us we go
Alibaba.
No Alibaba. I mean, you can use Alibaba, but like I honestly think less than 20% of manufacturers are on there at most. Global sources is better than Alibaba for Vietnam and outside of China, but still it's lacking. But for us, I mean, we use Import Yeti. Our team is based in Buen Duong province, which is the largest single industrial area. So we're pretty plugged in with the Chamber of Commerce and government there. So we get the direct factory contacts from that area and a few other surrounding areas directly from that. We go to trade shows. Our team will probably go to about every month, probably 6 to 8 trade shows a month. And then, I mean, you got Yellow Pages, you got Import Yeti. So you really got to use a pretty wide variety of resources to find the factories and then kind of shortlist them, check their website and go online. Some factories shockingly don't have websites, which kind of blows my mind, but
which is probably good, because if you're able to figure out a way to find them, then your competition's less likely to find them. Now, Import Yeti, is that like you find like let's say your competitors who have products they source from Vietnam, and then you figure out the factory, kind of reverse engineering it?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, you can do like supplier search or company search to see where they're buying their products from. You can look by HTS code, see which products come from HTS code. And then you can. They have kind of now some AI tools that I've been playing around with that I kind of like, where you can do the products directly, and they're kind of smart enough to know what that product is and what similar products are. So yeah, we use that decent amount. But I mean, like we said, we kind of keep finding these factories, talk to them, and as we verify about them, we kind of, like we said, maintain our own internal database that we've been building for years and years. And those come from all over. And I mean, we know who can quote, who can do low MOQs, who is quality product. Like when we done bags and backpacks, we were getting like talking to 10, 20 factories each time when we first started out, like going through 50 to 100 factories to really, in the pre-qualification phase, get down to the ones we talk. And then, but now that we've been doing this for years, we definitely have, I mean, network a couple dozen factories, but we really can narrow it down and just go straight to the ones that really can meet exactly what the client wants at their MOQs. Like there's big backpack factories, so everyone 10,000 or more, we'll go with those. There's smaller ones that have like 200 to 400 people in their line.
What would be the MOQs relative to China? Are they similar, or?
I would say actually higher, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, like for anything textile, like clothing to backpacks to anything else, I definitely recommend 1,000 or more. Furniture, you can get lower, but generally speaking, I would say at least container load. So depending on the size of your product, it could be a couple hundred to maybe 500 or more. So definitely trying to get a container load when you're doing like furniture and heavy goods.
Gotcha. Megan asks, are sourcing agents in Vietnam reliable, and how do you find a good one? Because a lot of times, in China, you're dealing with sourcing agents there. What are the red flags to look out for when sourcing from Vietnamese suppliers?
Yeah. I mean, there are some reputable sourcing agents, but I mean, just within the last few years, there's so many people that just came out of nowhere and just throwing their
I'm a
name out on
sourcing
like
agent.
I mean, I'm a sourcing company myself, so
Well, but like in the other country, you
yeah.
clearly have more knowledge and stuff,
Oh,
and you've been
100%.
doing this for a long time.
Yeah, and we're
I can
typically
see how
not
it's
agents
easy.
either.
The barrier to entry for some people, especially in some of these other countries, might be fairly
Oh,
low.
100%. Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's definitely, yeah. I mean, so many. Yeah, when I started out, there was basically like 3 people sourcing from Vietnam.
mhm.
And so yeah, I mean, just since then, since demand, I mean, there's people coming from everywhere. And yeah, a lot of them are not repeatable. I mean, for me, like the way our service is set up is a flat rate, but everything's transparent. So you get direct factory connections, original quotes. Most of the sourcing agents, you talk to them and they act as middleman. They don't disclose the factory name. So if they don't disclose the factory names or anything like that,
Oh, that's a good red
I think
flag.
that's a big red flag. Because they're just, they're taking the money from you and then paying
Right,
the factory some
exactly.
and then taking a pretty substantial cut, like sometimes up to about a third or more.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so obviously you're not getting the best rate there. So yeah, definitely make sure everybody's you do direct factory connections anytime you talk to a sourcing agent. Some just do commission model where they get 5%, but with those, I mean, they got to talk to the factories and they're only going directly to the factories they can get kickback from. So it's free. But they're going to be like, hey, I got this product, I got this client. If I do an introduction between you and them, can I get a 5% cut of the deal or whatever they negotiate?
Mhm.
And so it'll be free for you, obviously, but there's obviously they're getting kickbacks and they're going directly to the companies that agree to give them kickbacks. So
Right.
yeah, I
Whereas
mean,
if you had gone direct, you would have just
oh yeah, get the
made that
best.
savings.
Yeah, yeah, and then you'll get a much wider range of factories too. So I used to say either work with a sourcing company, which I'm technically not an agent, I'm a company. So I
Mhm.
mean, like we said, we try to get as many quotes as we can. We typically get about 2 to 6 quotes. You choose which factory you work with based on, when you order samples, talk to the factories, follow up with them. So we'll do direct factory introductions, and then you pick which one is best for you. And yeah,
Awesome. Mudasar says, thanks for this great info, Jim. As someone who manages Amazon brands scaling across UK, US, and EU, I'm curious, how do Vietnam suppliers generally compare to Chinese factories when it comes to lead time,
yeah,
consistency, and MOQs, especially for smaller test orders? So
yeah.
we kind of already touched on the MOQs, but what about the
Mhm.
lead times? Are they similar to China? Are they
Yeah,
faster,
they're
slower?
similar. I will say a lot of times for first time orders, we do have to order raw materials, and be quite frank, a lot of those raw materials and components do still come from China.
Hmm.
So like we're working backpacks, actually zippers, there's a brand new factory that makes zippers, but before we were sourcing pretty much all our zippers from China. And even like complex zippers, like when we do waterproof zippers, we still get those specifically from China. Buckles, stuff like that. Um, Sometimes raw materials come from all over the world, but yeah, you're probably looking at a month just to order the raw materials. Once you place a purchase order, they'll purchase the raw materials. It takes about a month sometimes ish to come in. So lead times can be a little bit slower in that regard, especially for a first time order. But generally, once the order is in production and second order, they should have the raw materials already on hand, so they can start pretty much much quicker. MOQs, like I said, higher a lot of times. And I hate to say it, for the smaller test orders, like we would get clients who always want to do like, a 50 to 100 order production run ahead of time. But yeah, they really, really, really push you to do 1,000 MOQ or whatever for your first order. You can get samples made before, but we're talking about 1 or 2 samples, not a
Right.
small sample test order of like 50 to 100. So we'll get samples, we'll get multiple rounds of samples, but those are going to be 1 or 2 items and not for retail. But yeah, it's a little frustrating a lot of times because yeah, we've tried to really. I mean, there's a handful of factories that do smaller MOQs, and we really try to find those for our clients. And we one of the things in our database, we specifically have separated out low MOQ factories. But especially with at least in the last month, um, factories are really pushing higher MOQs, and they're got a lot more demand, so they're
Well, yeah, the,
taking on
the,
more
the
MOQs.
demand is on their side right now.
Yeah, and only a few factories have, yeah, because there's factories that have a dedicated sample production line, but
Mhm.
it's only a few of them, to be honest.
Hmm.
We're gonna do those, like the smaller test orders, but majority don't, and it's kind of annoying because I work with a client had investments, they had money, and they really want to do more or less the Zara Sheen model-ish to extent, where they would get like maybe dozen, 50, 100 different styles that they order 100 units of those styles, put it on the market, put it on their website, and then if one took off virally, they would order like pretty much right off the bat, order 5, 1,000, 10,000 or even more of that specific style. And that's the model they really want to do. But just getting a factory that could do 100 orders of 100 MOQs each was so difficult to do.
Because I mean, you'd think they'd be like, okay, well, that's collectively a pretty big order.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the idea that we're going with. And I mean, we could find a few factories that do it, but just getting one that could do a small order collectively and do a lot of those, and then scale up to that.
Yeah.
It's just really hard to, a really big challenge for us, to be quite frank. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, that's good to know about Vietnam, that your MOQs might be a little larger. Not necessarily like, blowing you out of the water, like you got to order 100,000 units.
No, but definitely 1,000 or more. I definitely recommend. And we can find factories and do 300 or 500, but like when you say we get 2 to 6 quotes, we're really getting like 2 or 3 quotes for the 500 or less MOQs, and we can get like 5 or more with 1,000 MOQs. And a lot of, factories, and a lot of good factories turn down. A lot of factories can be more selective with who they take on, and yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Hina asks, do both the countries, I'm assuming Vietnam versus China, since that's kind of our main comparison here, have any differences in landing costs, or is it about the same? Which we talked a little more about the product, but like shipping, for example.
Well, with landed costs, that does include the tariffs. So obviously,
true. That's a big savings just right there.
Yeah. So once you factor that in, definitely huge cost. And again, we're assuming they're shipping from China and Vietnam to the United States. But
is shipments as readily available? Like in China, it seems like there's both.
It's never been an issue, really. Yeah. You might wait a few days longer at the port than you do in China. But for the most part, it's just like a couple days. At most a week longer. And most of that is not on the water time. It's just waiting for the right ship to come in. Like, ships go from like Shanghai to Long Beach probably 5 times a day. While in China, Vietnam, actually Long Beach, there's probably a ship every day from Port of Saigon and main ports to Long Beach. But when you go to more like Houston, maybe there's 2 ships a week, but you just wait 3 days for that ship to come.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what about the cost of a container? Is it similar?
Yeah, it's effectively the same. It really fluctuates, and there's times when Vietnam's cheaper than China.
Okay.
Yeah, but
right now it might be a little more expensive than it would have been.
Yeah, a little bit more, but it's real. I need to check shipping prices.
But when your option is 145% tariff versus
when you're you don't have
tariff.
that, you got 10% tariffs. So yeah.
Right. All right. So then Megan asks, I sell fitness and recovery soft goods. You mentioned Vietnam is known for textiles. Would this fall under that scope?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm thinking yoga mat, for example.
Yeah, we've done yoga mats from Vietnam. We've done resistance bands. We've done like foam balls for like massaging type foam balls. Yeah, so I'm pretty confident. I'm not sure what type of fitness recovery. There's quite a broad category, but if it's soft good, I'm pretty confident there would be some good factories for you. If not, you can just ask Tim. Megan, if you want, just contact me directly and I'll give you a qualified response specifically for your items, if yes or no, if it can be sourced in Vietnam.
Well, it's probably a good segue to if someone wants to learn, which we'll continue with questions here in a moment. So, but if somebody wanted to learn more, where would they go?
Website's probably the best way. Just scroll down on the homepage, you can find a form or go to contact us page.
Cosmosourcing.com, just like
Cosmo. No, my finger doesn't go that far.
Oh yeah, there you go. just like in the background there behind him.
Oh yeah,
Cosmo Sourcing.
Yeah, and then info@cosmosourcing.com is my direct email.
Okay, good deal. Info.
Just contact me that way. I'm all the socials too. If you want to contact me by the socials.
Awesome. Definitely reach out to Jim Kennemer on at cosmosourcing.com. All right. Next up, we've got Megan, or Keegan, I should say. Sorry. Keegan. I went from Megan to Keegan. The 6'7" trainer, tall guy. Any ideas for supplements besides the US?
I quite frankly don't do too many supplements. This is like its own category, to be
Sure.
perfectly honest. The United States actually is pretty decent for supplements from
Mhm.
our experience. And I have contacts with companies that do kind of private label supplements. They can put you in touch with, but like Private Label Labs and Wanda both kind of work in that category, but it's just not a category I really work in because yeah, it's just with kind of food grade stuff and whatnot. It has its own set of certifications and verifications, and
Yeah.
I just don't have that expertise, to be perfectly honest.
Well, and part of me
Yeah.
kind of is curious about what's the where does the question come from? So, like for example, like are you
Yeah.
looking to like sell stuff in the EU or in
Mhm.
Canada? And they have their own specific rules, and you're looking
Yeah.
for something that fits that
Yeah. Because
more so in
yeah.
the US. But I
Mhm.
would say you're probably in this. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're probably best with anything ingestible to try to source it from whatever country you're selling
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. That's kind of one of the reasons I kind of going away from that. Like we get requests for cosmetics too, and I
Hmm.
just don't know the industry. Getting the standards right and verifying that is just a whole another beast.
Yeah,
um,
I can
which
imagine.
I've explored. I've looked at doing private label cosmetics from South Korea, but it's just its own thing in terms of like certifications and regulations. I really kind of just stick with um non-consumable goods, I guess.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
All right. Michael says, great live stream. Really needed some guidance. High fives. Is moving sourcing from China worth it right now? Won't we all just shift back to China in a couple years? The prospect of moving just to revert back later is daunting. That is the scary part. You
Yeah.
go through all this time and effort, and then all of a sudden things change and tariffs are back to normal or
Oh, I
whatever.
know. Yeah, and kind of that you do kind of might risk ruining your relationship too, because I mean, I know people source from the same supplier for 10 plus years from China, and then
Hmm.
they're looking elsewhere, and there's the chance, it's like a divorce almost. You kind of
Right.
piss them off, and
You
then
may not be
oh,
happy
I sourced
about
from
this.
China for 2 years, and then or not China, I sourced from Vietnam for 2 years, and try to go back, which I can't really answer that question. Every supplier is different. I think if you're getting directly impacted by tariffs, it's definitely worth exploring. Like, I mean, we can look at options for you. Um, See what suppliers are out there, what goods are made there, what their pricing is, and if it's a suitable fit, then yeah. But I mean, yeah, I mean, manufacturing outside of China is getting much more mature at this point too, and is going to only get more investments. I mean, after the first just 25% tariffs on Chinese goods, I mean, billions and billions of dollars in new investment in factories to upgrade existing factories, build new factories from scratch that were much more modern. So it's definitely the shift overall is going to be shifting outside China. So, um, yeah, I mean, definitely worth looking and seeing if you can find a supplier to make your goods at a good price. And there's no guarantee either that China is going to be cheaper than it was in 2 years, assuming tariffs just all of a sudden evaporate and went back to zero. Maybe more investments in factories in Vietnam that they could do your product efficiently. You got the scale, you got the relationship, and everything's there. So it's hard to say, but definitely looking back, I do agree that definitely is daunting because yeah, I mean, you just having a reliable supply chain for years and years and years, and just having your company
Yeah.
on autopilot, and then not focusing on a supplier because that's guaranteed lock that you just do, and then having to adjust your core product from a new country with a new supplier using new molds and developing new product spec sheet is definitely. I mean, we do that. We work with clients, and yeah, I know a lot of them. It's not easy task to do, and they're quite nervous and quite afraid about it. But it's mission critical for them because you got to get product, you got to get a good price.
Yeah, I mean, these tariffs
Yeah,
might go away. They might not. I mean, we don't know. I mean, there was
yeah.
hinting last week that they might be going away, but I've not seen any real movement since then. So
I mean, not I just with the posturing of China, like they're not backing off. China's not backing off, and
yeah,
they
I
expect
can't
Trump
see
to
that they
blink first.
would.
And yeah, because
We have
yeah, I
two
mean,
parties on both sides.
yeah,
Again, not political, just
oh yeah,
observational. Two
mhm,
parties on both sides who are kind of their MOs
yeah.
are we don't back down,
Mhm.
and they
But
will.
even then, at the end of the day, I mean, Republicans generally have a midterm coming up, even if it's a year and a half or almost over a year and a half from now. You got to think about their election 2 year, but I mean, Xi's locked in. He doesn't care. And you look
Oh,
at the
that's
numbers.
true. That's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's even less incentive on the other side.
Oh, I know.
There's going to be political pressure on this side, I
Because yeah,
think.
I mean, once we start having empty shelves, I mean, there's this summer is going to be interesting. Yeah.
It will be.
I mean, just with higher
once
prices.
it affects normies is the way I
Yeah.
like to look at it. Then all hell breaks loose.
Oh, I know. And yeah, I mean, once there's empty shelves and higher prices on what is in stock, and there's definitely going to be a pressure
Yes.
on certain parties to make a decision and
Yeah.
change.
Good
and
way to look at it.
they don't have that pressure in China.
Yeah. So Thomas says, thank you. Greetings from
I love
Colombia. Or Tomas,
Beautiful
probably,
country.
not Thomas.
Yeah.
Abdul says, if we source from Vietnam, how much is the lead time? So we talked a little bit about, you said
Yeah.
lead times are generally similar.
It depends on the product, but yeah, once you place a purchase order, very roughly, again, depends on the product. 30, 90 days is what we give a rough estimate, but I can't give an exact time without knowing your product.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Totally makes perfect sense. All right. And then Unlimited Advertising says, thanks for all the info. Yeah, this is our pleasure. So again, if folks want to learn more from you, where should they go?
Yeah, cosmosourcing.com is probably the best way. It's our main website. Yeah, if you want to talk to me directly, info@cosmosourcing.com. Yeah, just shoot me an email. I'll answer any of your questions directly. No, you probably don't want to discuss your specific exact products, but I'll keep everything confidential if you email me. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, with that, thank you for coming on and sharing your knowledge.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
You didn't even know, you just get a random email from some guy who was like, hey, come on this live stream. So
I got a
we
few.
appreciate this. And for those of you who missed the very beginning, before we hit the live button, Jim and I realized that we have family that lives in the same small town in Wisconsin.
Monroe, Wisconsin.
Yeah,
small
Monroe,
town of like
Wisconsin.
10,000 in Wisconsin.
Yes.
Yes,
which is so funny. And that's where you live now. So that's
that's where I live now.
Yeah, so super exciting stuff. So if anyone's interested in cheese days, they got the best cheese days in Monroe, Wisconsin. So
it is
lots
literally
of
some of the best cheese in the world. Not even kidding. Like we had the #1 rated cheese in the world a few years ago. Was made here. Yeah, the small town of 10,000, but there's 17 master cheesemakers, which is the most of any city in the world of any size.
Oh, that's a little tidbit I didn't even know.
Yeah. So yeah, there's only about 200 master cheesemakers in the world, and 17 of them live in this town or around.
Wow.
Or Green County as a whole. Yeah.
Awesome. So go visit Monroe, Wisconsin. And in the meantime, go visit cosmosourcing.com.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jim.
Perfect. Hey, sounds good. It's a pleasure.